All right, welcome back to our introduction to the Romans education. This is session 2 of that introduction. So what I want to do now is for you to look at your notes that are entitled The Design of the Book and How to Use It. So when you're looking at this, these are real brief outline notes of this, but once I say what I've got to say here today, I believe you'll be able to come back and look at the notes that I have given you here, and it will refresh your memory about everything that we're doing. And so this book is actually divided up into parts, and it is specifically designed to accompany the video session. Now, is it possible for someone to just read the notes and go through? Yeah, I guess it probably is. But this book was created with the video or the audio in mind. And actually, look, the audio is better than nothing, but the video is best because there's a lot of things in your book. So if you guys on Zoom and you folks here in this room, if you have your books, let me ask you to turn in your books to page 2. And on page 2, you're going to see a table of contents. And what I want to do is I'm going to walk us down through the table of contents to the various parts of how this book is structured, and then explain kind of what's happening here, what happens when you get home, all that kind of business. All right, so at the beginning of every chapter, and let me just start here at the beginning and say, in the beginning, I think back to Genesis. When we first began to put these books together, I thought we were going to be doing 2 sessions every Sunday. But we did a little bit of research about that and found out that the 2 sessions every Sunday is going to be a little bit much in the beginning when there are things that you'll be doing during the week that you're not normally accustomed to, and it was a little overwhelming. Now, for some of you, it may not be that way at all. But here's the thing about sonship, and you all realize it, we want everyone to make this trip together. And so the best way that we're going to structure the sessions is in the first session, when we meet next Sunday, we will be in your book. And that means by then, I should have books to everybody. If something happens, look, Sergey and Susie live in Sweden, and so they don't have their book yet. Even though their book went out in that first batch of mailings, they don't have it yet. It just takes a while when it goes overseas. Or it could be someone in this country. If you don't have your book by next week, long about, Larry, I need you to listen to this because you need to help me remember that we need to do this. Long about Friday or Saturday, let's say Friday, if you don't have those books, we're going to email you the notes that we're going to be in on next Sunday, and hopefully that will be enough for you to get your book in the week after that, but you'll still be able to fully participate in the session next week. So that's what they're shooting for. Hopefully we can get books to everybody, and that's our goal. But once it leaves our hands at the post office, it's out of our control. So we'll try to do that. All right. So now, at the start of every session, you're going to be working through a series of interactive note takers. I want to apologize in advance. If you want to see an example of that, let me turn you in your book. If you have your student book in front of you, look at page 3. You're going to be filling things in the entire time of the session. Now, it's not going to be a ton of writing, so don't be put off by that. But what I'm trying to do is create a visual of the concept, and then you're going to fill in the main parts to complete that concept. And hopefully that is going to help all of us better retain the principles that I'm talking about. Those are all going to be on the PowerPoint, and that's why the video is really better. Because later, as folks are looking at this on Vimeo, they're going to be able to look at this video and see the PowerPoint, to see the things that are filled in. Those illustrations are going to be right up there, and everybody's going to be able to kind of walk through that. And as we talk about each one of these principles that are in the Scripture. And so that's why the video is so important. Now look, I recognize that there are different kinds of learners. But if you're a visual learner, this is going to be right up your alley, because you're going to see a picture of the principle. Secondly, anytime you engage with that and write things down, you tend to remember what you write way better than what you just hear. Now, I know that some of people among you are auditory learners. You want to hear it, and that's the best way for you to get it. Well, as we're doing the video, you're actually going to be able to do that. But look, I would encourage you, even if you're auditory, I would encourage you to fill in the interactive note taker. It's not that much writing, but to be able to have all of that filled in your book may come in handy later when you may be showing someone else who is more of a visual learner. Secondly, I don't think it hurts to have that just filled out in there so that you see your book is complete. The third kind of learner is a kinesthetic learner, and that's people that learn best by hands-on. They have to kind of do it. You have to kind of walk them through it. And so this interactive learning is going to be right up that alley. So two of the three are really going to be, this is exactly what you're going to, I think the learning will be enhanced by the interactive note takers. So I'm pleading with you now. I have seen this in the past. I have participated in things like this myself. And so I know the value of having something already filled out that you can know that all the information is in there and put it on the shelf, and later you can always go retrieve that and open that up, and you'll be surprised at how much you will benefit from the work that you do when this is going on. So I'm pleading with you to have your books with you every time and to engage in these interactive note takers. So in the first session, we will we'll have that as we start each session. So next week, that's exactly what we'll do. We'll start in the first session, and we'll start working our way through these interactive note takers. I want to give an apology for all the illustrations in your book. I know they look a little cartoonish, but we don't have the ability to hire a graphic artist who can draw everything in the same similar type form all the way through. I have to find royalty-free images. I buy a few of these images, but most of them are royalty-free, and we can just utilize them in our. And so we're just using what we have. And I can't tell you how difficult it is to try to have a sonship concept and now go find an illustration that fits that. That's not as easy as you might think, at least not for me. So anyway, we'll be in this book and we'll be doing that, and that first section is the interactive note taker, and that'll be at the beginning of each session proper. There is a difference, and let me say it this way. After we do this first session next week, in the second session, we will have interactive learning. We will not publish the interactive learning sessions on Vimeo, only the teaching sessions. There's a couple of reasons for that, but in those interactive learning sessions, we're going to be answering questions, and I'm going to be probing your understanding to make sure that the folks on Zoom and the folks in this room have an understanding of the principles and you got it, so that when you go home, you're not lost about what's going on. And then we're also going to look at the things that you will be doing at home and kind of walk through that so that you don't get home and go, so what was I supposed to do? So I don't want us to be kind of in the dark about that. And when we come back the next week, before we get right into the next set of information in the education, I'm going to ask you if you had any issues with the previous things that you did at home. And that way we can solve those right off the bat. And if there's not anything, then we'll move right into the education. If there is something and we need to take a few minutes to address it, then we'll address it, because I want to make sure everybody is making the trip with us. And so don't be shy. You have to make enough commitment to the education to say, if I've got a question or if there's something I don't understand, I am going to say it. And so I think the book is going to go a long ways to helping us avoid a lot of that. But if there's still something, then I want us to be able to do that. And by the way, for you folks on Zoom, the people here have no trouble talking. Quite the opposite. The people on Zoom, yeah, you know who you are. Yeah, okay. The people on Zoom, there is no one here that is going to think anything untoward about if you have a question or there's something that you need clarified. Unless it's maybe Larry Thomas. Okay. Everybody else is going to be fine. Look, this group wants everyone to, look, there is no resistance to this. They want you to get it. They want you to be a part. They want you to participate. And so everybody here is on board with this. And so you won't find a group that will do any better than this group in doing this. So take advantage of that, and don't be shy about it. Just think, this is important. My sonship is at stake in this, so let me make sure that I've got everything that I need. Okay, so with that being said, I hope that that'll make you feel comfortable now about being able to ask questions or things like that. Now, here's the next set. If you look at that table of contents, back on chapter 2, it says the interactive note taker starts on page 3, and then the student notes start on page 7. Let me tell you what these notes are. I know you're used to getting the old style of notes that had everything I was going to cover in a session and all the rabbit trails and all that kind of business. That's not what this is. We are streamlining the education process. I am going to stay on point in the videos. I know. Okay, stop it. All of y'all. Stop. Okay, now I'm talking to the Zoom people. Look, I'm going to stay on point. If there is a side issue that I think is very relevant that will help everyone understand, if I can do it in about 1 to 3 minutes, I will do it. And then we'll move on. You'll see. Yeah, okay, yeah, we will see. I see that. This, you know what? Y'all need sonship. Y'all are so jaded. Oh, my goodness. All right. So if I can do it quickly, we'll do it, and then we'll move on. In the old days, I would refer to something, and then we do all these references and stuff. Now, you may be saying, wait a minute, but I enjoyed, some of you who appreciate it, enjoy the rabbit trails. You're not losing them. They're still in this book. They're still there. They're just not in your notes section. So when you look at page 7, here's what the notes are about. Let's say we're in Romans 12, 1 and 2. Everything in that notes section is about those 2 verses. I'm not running back over to Deuteronomy and doing a recap of the 5 courses. I'm not doing any of that other stuff. This is strictly on point with the verses that we are studying. By the way, the illustrations in your book, the interactive note taker, that is strictly on point to the verses. So we're just going to stay on point. Now, so the notes, if you read over there and you say, well, I kind of like to know more about this, you will be able to, but that is going to be up to you. We're not going to cover it in the video, and I'm not going to give it to you in that notes section. And then, if you look at your table of contents, you'll see in sessions 1 and 2, the summary takes place on page 30. And so, if you will, turn over, and now just hold your finger there, and turn over in your book to page 30. And what you're going to see is a summation of the first 2 lessons. Notice that summary is 1 page long. So I've really encapsulated, I boiled it down to the most important salient points that need to be retained in your thinking. So instead of you looking at, see, the notes start on page 7 and they run to page 29. So instead of saying, I got over 20 pages of notes and I gotta go through that, and what do I need? I've already boiled it down for you. Here it is. And because we're going to be doing 1 session per Sunday, it's really only going to be half a page. So I'm not overloading you, and because you've already worked through a visual on it, it'll already kind of be sticking in your mind. Now someone can say, or ask the question, well look, if we go through the video, do we have to go home and read the notes? And I don't mean have to in the sense that I'm telling you that here's what you must do. Here's the thing. You'll know after you go through the interactive note taker if you'll benefit from going through the notes. If you think you would, then just go read them. If you say, look, I think I got it, I'm going to say this to you, we'll see. Remember what you said to me? Okay, so we'll see. So and there's a way to know that. So again, just say, and if you need to go through the notes 3 times, you've got them, and they're all on point. Okay, so you see that here's that summary on page 30. It's just 1 page long. All right, now back to page 2 on your table of contents. You'll see the next thing on page 31 is a self-test. This is meant to make you understand, did you retain everything from the session and the interactive learning, or did you not? These are not trick questions. I'm not trying to ask you stuff that I think you won't remember so I can go, aha, see, got you. I'm not doing that. I want you to have it. So the only thing that's in the self-test are the things that you need to retain to be able to move forward to the next set of information or the next verses. If you look at that self-test, now you can go back over to page 31. When you look at that, you can see there's 9 questions. But those 9 questions cover the first 2 sessions. So again, there's just 4 or 5 for a Sunday. So if you can answer the self-test questions accurately, you have told yourself, do I need to go back and read those notes or not? Now, does it help to go back and read the notes? I think it does, because it fills in, and gives you kind of a context for everything. But you are going to have to make a sonship decision about how much of that you will do. There may be times when you go, I breezed through that. I got this. There may be other times where you go, I'm going to have to go back and read the notes. Just be willing to do that. Just don't make it a rule one way or the other. I will always read them. I will never read them. Do what you need to do in order for the thing to work. Okay, back to the table of contents now. So when you look at this next section on page 32, that is the section on prayer. Okay, now look, let me talk to you about this for a moment. When you get to prayer, sonship prayer, this group, let me talk, most of the folks that are on Zoom, most of you, I'm sure, and all the folks in this room, you have been through multiple studies on sonship prayer. You understand that prayer today is about inner man issues and not about external circumstances. And you should also understand why it is that way. It's not that God doesn't care. It's that He is doing something more important than delivering you from some, I fell off a chair and broke my, what was it you broke, Sarita? Your wrist, right. I just had to throw her under the bus. So it's not that He doesn't want to, it's not that He doesn't care about that, but it's in your going through that with regard to the education is what God is producing in you. And that's eternal in nature. Sarita's wrist healed up. And she could mark around today just as good as she could before that accident. A little bit better. Okay. So, no, okay, so thank you for that. Don't say that out loud, Richard. Okay. So now you see, I got off track. You guys. So even though we know it's about inner man issues and not external, outer issues, physical issues, how to do that sonship prayer is still somewhat elusive. So listen to me, folks on Zoom, folks in this room. I have taken great pains to walk you through the prayer issue every week. Don't be offended when you read this and say, guys, he's acting like we're kids, we're just stupid. Here's what I've learned. Don't take anything for granted. I would rather explain a detail you didn't have to have than not explain it and somebody now they don't get it. Clifford?
Mike, I want to say something here about prayer.
Yes, sir.
We've had a lot of studies on prayer, and it's still one of the hardest issues I have of learning about prayer and the proper prayer. And I'm not for sure I know it all now.
Right.
I expect to learn. But that is a big issue, and in my opinion, it has everything to do with our ability to get through sonship.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. He's right on point. Couldn't have been said any better. In fact, with that in mind, you kind of reminded me of what I wanted to do here. So in the education, you have the interactive note takers. You have the notes. And you have what was the next one? The summary. And you have the self-test. All of that, folks, and those first things we covered, those all concern the education. That's just getting the information. You see that, right? But when we get into prayer, we are now talking about engaging with our Heavenly Father, Richard, right, with regard to now edification. And that's one of the reasons Linda, do you remember when you said this? Remember we went through the education the first time we got up to Romans 13, and I said, look, I feel like before we provoke the adversary, let's go back and let's get this stuff. And we went back and we did a review. And you came to me and you said, do you see edification working in us? And do you remember my answer? I said, I see great progress, but not the kind of edification that we ought to have working. And you said, that's what I was thinking. You remember that conversation? So if you're offended by that, see Linda, because she's the one that brought it up. Okay. And part of the reason that was true is because this eluded us. We were willing to be able to say prayer is an integral part of this process, but like Clifford just said, we weren't sure how to engage in that so it could do what it was designed to do. Are we just talking for the sake of talking? We know that's not right. So what I have done in the prayer section, which is why in these first two lessons, the prayer section is 3 pages long. I am walking you through this. So please don't send me an email saying, golly, you acted like we don't know anything. In the beginning, I just need everybody to get it. Later, you won't need all that. But what I'm hoping everybody will do is they'll read that and they'll go, thank God you explained all of that. Because that's what I was missing before. Okay, so that's what I'm hoping that this is going to accomplish. If you'll notice in your book, I want to start this. So, page 32. I put a little prayer alert up at the top of the page that says, please don't overlook this. I couldn't have said it any better than Clifford just said it a moment ago. There's a lot riding on the prayer. Your edification, the first part of turning education into edification starts right here. If you miss this, you've missed first base. And so now I'm going to give you a prayer. If you look on page 32, right down about the bottom third of the page, I give you a prayer formula. And I just say, here's the kinds of things that need to be in a proper sonship prayer that is in connection with these verses that we're looking at. So it's not generalized, I'm being specific to the verses. If you look over on page 33, in red, I'm giving you an example of a prayer that follows the formula. Let me ask you a question. Do you have to pray the prayer I have written in the book? Thank you. In fact, if you never copy that prayer, it's fine. So why should I go to the trouble to give you an example prayer? I know this is dangerous. People look at that and they just say, okay, so if I pray this, I'm edified. Don't think that. You can't, you can't just, it's not magic. You can't just say these words and now there it is. What I'm trying to show you is how to take that formula and turn it into a prayer that contains all of those elements. Is it okay? Now, sometimes, every once in a while, and I've heard other preachers do this, they say something in such a way that I look at that and I go, you know what? I can't improve on that. That was perfect. And you know what I do? I just claim that for myself, and and I just utilize that. And then I use it so often as my own, I forget exactly where I heard that or how long ago it was. But it was exactly what I thought it ought to have been. Every once in a while, you may see something I've given you and go, ooh, I like that. That says exactly how I'm thinking about it. So feel free to do that, because I don't want you to swing the pendulum one way or the other. Just because I wrote it doesn't mean you can't utilize it in some way. And because I wrote it doesn't mean you should just only do that. Everybody gets that, right? Okay. So as we go through, and I'm talking to you in these pages. Look, if you look down at the last paragraph on page 33 where it starts in black, I say to you, do you realize what this is doing? In other words, it's like I'm sitting there talking to you saying, are you aware now of what we're accomplishing when we do this? And you need to think about your answer to that. Don't just read the question. You need to say to yourself, yeah, I get it. I saw the prayer formula, I saw the model, and I saw what I was supposed to expect from that. So yeah, I get it. But if you go, no, I'm still not clear what I'm supposed to see in this. That's a valid question. What should you do if you do that? Yeah, go back. If you go back, and where would you go back to? You could go back to the notes. You could go back to the start of the prayer section, depending on what your question was. But if you go back and you still don't get it, what should you do? Thank you. Ruby nailed it. You have to talk to somebody. I suggest we all call him Mark Bain. He doesn't work for a living. He's just over there sleeping. And so, I'm kidding. He's forwarding all of his calls to Larry. Okay. Which Larry? It doesn't matter. Oh my gosh. Now they're all mad at you. Okay. You do not want the Larrys in this group mad at you. I'm just going to tell you that now. So look, if you just don't get it, you have to get a hold of us. So right now, you know what? Here's what I'm tempted to say. Because I want you to get it. I'm tempted to say, just call me. But look, if you knew my schedule, you would understand that that may not always be the best option, because a time that works for you doesn't always work for me. But I don't want to leave you in the dark about it. And it's not, you know what, I'm not so high and removed that I can't talk with you. Lord knows, I answered the phone for folks plenty of times. But I do have to have, so maybe we need a way to be able to get those calls so that I can, or someone can get back to the folks who have these kinds of questions. That's a good idea, Richard. He can email me. You can email me. So here it is. Is this big enough, Mark? That's an M. MBI president at windstream.net. If you'll send me an email, you can if you want to, you can just say, hey, here's the part that's tripping me up. Or you can just say, hey, I've got a question. Can you help me? We have men who have studied long enough. Don't be offended if one of these men calls you and says, let me see if I can help you. Because they will donate. I've talked to them about it. They will donate some time to be able to do that. And if you can get it straight, you're just after the answer anyway, right? And if they can't, let's just say, for instance, I picked on Mark, but let me just say, if I say to Mark, hey, can you give this guy a call today? And if you can't, and if he can't do it today, you know what? Maybe I do it, or maybe I farm it out to someone else, and that can get it done as quickly as possible. Because again, you don't need to be sitting on it for 4 days waiting to go forward. But as soon as we can get it out there, then you know what? Just send me this. Give me a way to contact you, and then I'll make sure somebody gets back to you. If Larry Thomas is trying to help you and they've got a question, and Larry goes, you know what? I'm not sure myself. Then you know what? I will always get involved in that process. So, you know, I'm just trying to say, we will find a way to get that done. So send me an email if you, and look, before you do that, go back. Do that. Go back, because a lot of times you'll find it. You just missed it the first time through. Just go back. And if you still don't get it, then give me a call. You know what I'm reminded of? I'm reminded of the story of the college kids who had a final coming up. And what they did is they were so busy partying and going crazy that they didn't study for the final, and they were all wore out. And so what they did is they went out and they got a bunch of grease and dirt and put it all over them. They all came into the professor's office together, and they said, Professor, we know we have this final coming up, and we were coming back from a trip, and we broke down, and we had to push the car, and they told this big elaborate story, and they said, we're just wore out, we're just getting in. Is there any way we could get an extension to take the deal? And he said, absolutely. He said, you know what? I'll give you 3 days. You guys can prepare, and then I'll give you the final. And they went, thank you so much. Well, in the 3 days, they all worked really hard so they could be prepared for the final. And when they came in, when those 4 came in, what they did is he set them in 4 different rooms, and their final only had 2 questions on it. The first question was worth 1 point. What is your name? The second question was worth 99 points. Which tire went flat? Whatever. Okay. So anyway, I told you that story to say I don't have a way to do that to you. So please just go back. I'm just at your mercy. Okay. By the way, there's one. You'll read these notes. Read everything when you leave here on next Sunday. When you go home, whether you read the notes or not, you should look at the summary, and you should take the self-test. If you don't know the answer to the self-test, what should you do? Go back to the notes. And then go through the self-test. And make sure you've got it. Go back to the notes. Then once you've done that, for edification part of the process, read everything in the prayer section. And go through that. This is you talking to your Heavenly Father. So if it's a little clumsy at the first, it's okay. All right. Now, back to the table of contents. So if you look back on that table of contents, you'll see, following the prayer, there is an edification evaluation. That's on page 35. So if you leave your finger there, table of contents, and come on back to page 35, you're going to see that this is just about a little over a half a page. But all I'm doing, and by the way, it's only half a page in this, because of where you are. You're in Romans 12, 1 and 2. There will be times when this page will be bigger, because there will be more doctrine that you're looking at. And so we'll fill that in. This helps you to be able to determine if this is beginning to take place. So let me ask you a question. And folks on Zoom, just think about this. If edification has taken place, then you should see every phase of edification the first week that you engage in it. Do you think that's true or false? That's false. What you're going to see is the beginning of the process of edification. So what I'm saying is, let's suppose that at some time during the week, although you've learned something that should impact your behavior, if you don't follow that, does that mean you haven't been edified at all? No, not necessarily. Because it takes a while for these kinds of things to really get themselves rooted and established, okay? It's not like turning on a light, it's like growing a plant. And so just think of it that way. And that has something to do with it, doesn't it? Okay, so now look back at the table of contents at page 36. If you say, I think on my self-test, I think I got the answer, but I'm not sure. I stuck the answers way over in the edification area. And so on page 36, I have given you the answers. Now that you know that, please, when you're doing the self-test, don't just turn over to the answers of the self-test. Okay, but I'm begging you. Okay, now back to the You know, I've seen some of those deals where they have the test on one page and the next page has the answers. It's just too tempting to flip the page. It's just too tempting. So I stuck it way over there in the midst of all of this other. Okay, so back to the table of contents. Now you have review materials. So that's the next part of that. So you have prayer, and you have edification, evaluation, right? Then the self-test answers. I just put it over there so it's not convenient to get to. And now we have review materials. Let me explain this. This is not a review of the lesson. This is other materials that you have learned before or should have learned before that are helpful in understanding this doctrine that we're studying. And so what I'm doing now is instead of chasing that rabbit in the video, I have given you the notes down here for you to be able to go back and take a look at that. And so there's another resource. So if you read the notes and you say, gosh, I still have some questions, go to the review materials and take a look and see if that doesn't help you. Then there's one more part. You don't have it on this table of contents because of where we are. We're in Romans 12, 1 and 2. But when we get into verse 3, you will have a whole nother section down here. And I am calling it the reservoir of knowledge. And this is material that we have not necessarily covered before. It's not exactly on about these verses that we're looking at, but it is parallel to them. In other words, I'm trying to show you, I'm trying to illustrate another way in which this is true, or this doctrine is working. And so what I'm doing here is I'm expanding what you know. It's out of this reservoir, folks, that you're going to operate on. So look, when you're teaching, you need to have a reservoir of knowledge to draw from. So you're teaching a lesson, but what you're hoping is you know enough that when someone says, well, what about this? You have enough knowledge that you can answer that question out of that reservoir. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to give you more, because in the verses, the scope is very narrow. What I'm trying to do is widen out your view. Yes. So that you see a bigger picture. You see how the same principle holds true in other areas. And by the way, the Bible is not going to give you this every time. For instance, when it comes to taking the doctrine and implementing it into your everyday life, it may give you this. And now the Lord is counting on you to begin to notice the other areas that you can make the same kind of application. So the Bible's not walking you through every possible scenario. See, people think the Bible is just a list of all the do's and all the don'ts and all the examples, but that's not what it is. That's not how this book is put together. So what you do is you learn it in a very narrow sense so that you've got it down, and now take what you learn there and apply it somewhere else. Okay. So with that being said, now I've explained all of that, and all of this is, and there's even some other things in here. I don't want to get too complicated, but when you get your next book, this one is not in that book. But when you see review materials and reservoir of knowledge, when you are in your notes, and I know there's something I can't explain in a couple of minutes, I'm going to tell you in red, see the review materials on page such and such for a further discussion about whatever. So it's not like you're going to just wonder, what is he talking about? When you're in your notes, I'm going to take you directly to these and these and tell you what it is that we're discussing there. And so you know it's over there, so you it won't be like, I didn't realize it was even in there. So that's what it is. And you don't have to just go over there and read and try to figure out where we're coming in. You'll know exactly where this fit within the framework of the original notes. Everybody understand that? So there's a lot of work to that, but I'm trying to walk us through every possible way of this material. Now I know the beeper went off, and I'm almost through. So let me make these last things here. I am going to, if you do not get your book by Friday of this week, please email me at this address so that we can send you in an email the copy of the notes so you can still participate. And if your book comes in the next week, you can just go back and fill in that interactive note taker. So we'll keep you up to date until your book comes in. I haven't had any of the overseas books come back. Usually if the address is wrong, they send it back. I haven't had any of them come back this year, so I'm really encouraged about that. I think it's just taken a while for them to get there. You never know, right? So let me give. So here's the thing. This is going to require more, as you can see, than just listening on Sunday. You're going to have to make a commitment to do this. How important this education is to you, how important this edification is to you, how important your heavenly vocation is to you will determine. You're going to have to prioritize, and you're just going to have to make time. And the more you involve yourself in this, the more you will see it working. Folks, it's like anything else. If you're trying to learn to ride a bike, if you go out there once a week and spend 5 minutes, you're going to get what that gives you. But if you go out there every day for 5 minutes, you get what that gives you. But if you go out there every day for 15 minutes, you do even more. It doesn't change. So just look at it and involve yourself with it. Number 2, contact me if you have questions or problems, and we will get back to you just as soon as we can. I don't want you to be stuck all week. Don't let anything go by if you don't understand it. We're going to give you the first of the next week to be able to articulate any of those kinds of things that still haven't been resolved for you. And I've already talked to you about the format. We have a teaching session, and then we're going to have an interactive learning session. I just want to take a second and talk about that. In the second session, some of you may tune in and hear the teaching session, and then you're out. If you do that, that's totally up to you. But if you stay in the second session, not only will you hear the discussion of what the people here are saying and hear the questions that are being asked and answered, but I am going to take us in our books and walk us through the edification part of the process so that we're not just coming out of the blue, so to speak. In other words, I want to take part of that prayer deal and let's have a conversation. And I want to say, look, let me show you. Here's one part where this applies to here, and we'll talk about it, and I'll show it to you, and we'll have a discussion about it so that you get it. Now, that means sometimes that interactive learning will be shorter, and at other times it will be longer, but I want it to be sufficient to what we need. So I'm not trying to put a time on it. I'm not saying you're going to, the second session is always going to be 45 minutes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, let's make sure that we're doing what we need to do. Okay. Is there any, I had one other thing here. I don't think I thought of everything. There are things I wanted to do with this book that I did not get to do. What I wanted to do is take these reservoir of knowledge sections and review materials, and I wanted to dictate them into a microphone and put a audio CD in the back of this book so that you could actually plug that in and hear those materials rather than just reading them. I just didn't get to do that. That's a lot of work because some of those sections get really big, and I just wasn't able to do it. Maybe one day in the future we'll be able to do that. But what I am saying is, if you see something that would be helpful for you, feel free to make suggestions. I want to hear what you have to say. And I'm sure that we're going to find some things that will improve what we're doing. And as we go through, you realize what we're doing here. We're blazing a trail by means of this method. We're not the first ones down the Sonship Road, but we're the first one to standardize the education and the edification process and walk everybody through that step by step. So if there was something already done that we could have just utilized, that would have been easier than reinventing the wheel. But here we are. So I know there's something that is going to be overlooked or something that could be tweaked to make it better or something that could be added. Feel free to give me that. Okay? And we can talk about it in the sessions at some point, or you can send me an email. And then, okay, so that's it. That's everything that's there. Now, I hope that's been beneficial, that everybody understands what's in this book and what's intended to do. Next week when we come, we'll have all of those little drawings up on the PowerPoint, and you'll be working the whole video session. When I say working the whole session, I don't mean you're writing every single minute, but it means you're filling that in and you're getting the explanation and you're seeing the concept, and I think this is going to be very beneficial for us. Any questions? Anybody in the Zoom group that has a question about this? Something you might not understand or something I wasn't clear about or confusing about with regard to explaining what this book is. Because I'm not going to do this again next week. This is it. This is why we needed the introduction, so you'd know what you've got in your hands. Larry?
Will this, the first hour and the second hour, will it be available on the Dropbox?
Today?
Nope,
In the future, the first hour will. We talked about this. The only time we will make the second hour available is if, let's suppose after the first hour, in the second hour, there's 4 people in here that go, hey, there's something I don't understand, and they're all talking about the same thing, and then we get, some people on Zoom that go, yeah, I was wondering the same thing, and I see that it just wasn't clear. If I readdress that, we will put that on Vimeo. Because I think, if that many people had the same question, then how many more people are going to have that question? So let's just put it out there. So if the second session is really informative, we'll do it.
This was good because I have the church that I started at home. I will have other people coming along with it for a month from now. But to start, you did a great job. So reinventing the wheel. So I can show them the video, and that's why
Thanks, Larry. Okay. Now, I paid $10 for that, but I don't know if I got my money's worth. Okay. So, huh? We're going to video them both, but we're only going to put the instructional video on Vimeo. If it's just a normal, routine, run-of-the-mill interactive learning, we're not going to put that on Vimeo. It becomes a lot of data that we're paying to put on there, and it's not really instructive. But if there's something that makes that second session that we go, ooh, people need to see this, we'll put that on. For those of you who think at some point you want to teach this, I'm not just talking here, but I'm talking to the Zoom group. You've got a group and you want to teach this, but they're not ready to go through the education yet. I have a teacher's manual that is a little different from the student manual. And it walks the teacher through it doesn't have all of this. review material, reservoir of knowledge, and all. It doesn't have all that. This is just devoted to the guy that's going to teach it to say, here's what you're covering today. Here's what you obviously see what you're going to write on the interactive note taker, but what should you be saying while they're writing that down? And so that's a whole different book. I'm glad to make that available to anybody that wants to teach it. And to make the PowerPoint available. So, Larry, I'm just saying, if at some point in the future you want to do that, or anybody that's listening on Zoom, you've got a group and you want to teach that, I understand you may want to get down the trail in the education, but I just want you to know that resource is available, and I'm producing it at the same time, and I'd be glad to make it available for anybody. Is there anybody on? Okay, Linda, you got a question?
Just wondering, say for Eric, when he's at work, every other week, or anybody's gone out of town or whatever, is there anything, like we used to do recordings where you could, go back and look and stuff, is there any way, like a Dropbox or whatever, that they can go to and do that?
Yes. Does anybody here not have the Dropbox? Okay. In the immediate days now, Neil is going to be, he's putting our channel together on Vimeo. That's not really the right way to say it. It's a showcase. It's a showcase on Vimeo. He's putting that together. In the meantime, we're going to make even today's lessons available on the Dropbox just as soon as we possibly can. So we're going to try to get them on there. I had some tweaking done to my internet at home. I'm hoping that that's enough for us to be able to get these videos up, and I'd be able to get them up on Sunday nights. That way, if you wanted to review, can I just brag on Ruby a little bit? When we would do the DVDs, we won't record in DVD anymore. It's all MP4. But she used to get a DVD, along with others of you, and would go home, and she would watch that over again during the week and look at her notes. And I can't tell you how many times she said, when I left here, I wasn't really clear about this or that, but I re-listened to that, and I looked at the notes, and sometimes she said, when I read how you said it in the notes, it clicked, which was her nice way of saying shut up and just give me notes. But she would, she was listening again. If you want to hear it again, you can do that. So if you want the Dropbox, you're Monaghan's people. So here's the this. How's family 02 at gmail.com. And tell Larry Howes you want the Dropbox. Is it what? His email is in the notes. But I did it in 2 minutes. Right. It's on the notes, right. So anyway, if you don't have the Dropbox, you can call Larry. He's the Dropbox. Dropbox, here's what he'll do. He will send you an email. And in that email, he will explain about the MBI has a Dropbox. Everything we have ever filmed here, or if we did something different in Glen Rose, or I filmed it at home, it's on this Dropbox. And you can get the video, the audio, and the notes on the Dropbox. And so what you do is he's going to send you a link to our Dropbox. Keep that link, because all you do is click it, and our Dropbox opens up, and you'll see everything. You don't have to do anything yourself with it. All you need to do is access ours. So he's going to give you the link. You get directly into our Dropbox. If you want to download that, in other words, you can pull that off and download it to your own computer, so you don't need internet to do it. That you can do that. You can do that. Or you can leave it in our Dropbox, and you don't have to take up any hard drive space. No, that's fine for everyone. Yeah, it's fine. We're almost done. Is there any other questions about that? Anybody on Zoom have a question?
Michael, are you going to be doing away with the Dropbox?
We are not going to be doing away with the Dropbox.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, I love the ability to deliver stuff via the Dropbox. It's super easy. Yes.
Have you ever done studies on Matthew or some of the other gospel books?
I am, yes, yes and no. So here it is. I've done some preliminary things on the book of Matthew, but I am putting a study together on the book of Matthew, and I just, with this year being what it was, I haven't gone forward with it like I wanted to. The beginning of that study is actually in the Preacher Prep series, and where I cover the first 2 chapters of Matthew, and those are, if I say so myself, I think incredibly good. The information in them, I mean, the part that's in the doctrine, you know what I'm saying. It's called The Infallible Proofs of the Christ. That's on the Dropbox. And if you look at those, though, I'm doing the first 2 chapters of the book of Matthew. I have rough notes on the book of Matthew that probably runs 1,100 pages. And I just need to get them filmed. I just haven't done that yet. Yes, sir. Okay. Hey, thank y'all on Zoom for being a part. And we're really glad that you're here. Thank you all. We'll see you next Sunday. And we'll get started right into the education. If you have a question about any of this during the week that you didn't think of now, there's my email. Send it to me. If you want the Dropbox, get a hold of Larry. And we'll see you next time.